This is Dylan Sin from the Journal Gazette in Fort Wayne.
Hey, Dylan,
Thank you
how
for
you doing,
this.
man?
I'm good. I'm good. We miss you up here in Fort Wayne. Yeah, thank you for doing this. We all appreciate it. And I guess I just wanted to know, obviously you were at Michigan State for 10 years. You were a Michigan guy. What was the decision-making process like for you to leave and come back to Indiana?
Well, the first part is I've said, this is the first time I've been offered a job at Indiana. And I was waiting for Alex Bozich to offer me one from inside the hall, but that never happened. So this is really my first time being offered a job. And that's, I think there's certain things that I've worked for and a certain position I've earned with respect to, the college basketball coaching ranks. So I wasn't going to come for just anything. I probably would have come and worked for Alex. But when Coach Woodson called and told me, kind of the job description and the responsibilities, it was a pretty easy decision for me from that respect. But the fact that I had to leave East Lansing, I'm 45 minutes from my hometown, and that was the tough decision, was really that working for literally one of the best to ever do it in my mind, and being close to my parents. My brother lives in Ann Arbor, and I'd been home for the last 11 years. So otherwise, to have a chance to come and work for Coach Woodson, to work with Coach Matta, to work with somebody like Scott Dolson that I've known for 20 years. Matter of fact, Scott is the one that got me my GA spot. Back then it wasn't a GA. I don't know what I was. I was a graduate video coordinator, but Scott went out and spoke to somebody, a major donor by the name of Larry Globinger, who donated the money for me to have to earn my master's. And so to be able to work for people that I've known for a long time and respected for a long time was an easy decision.
Alex.
Dane, Alex Bozich inside the hall. This is kind of a loaded question, but you've been in the Big Ten now for, since the early 2000s, in and out, obviously, but with Michigan State the last 10 years, and kind of look at Indiana basketball over that period of time. Michigan State is kind of a program that in Wisconsin and a few others kind of benefited from Indiana maybe not being as good as it once was. What do you think needs to happen to kind of get this program back up into that conversation, the upper echelon, on a more consistent basis?
Well, when you look at last year's team, I think that, they didn't have a ton of depth at the big spot with Brunk being hurt, but that was an NCAA tournament team. And, we can look at the players and look at the coaches, but I think this is a culture issue, not just with the program itself, but with the fans, the media, the whole state. And I'm sorry to hold you accountable and say that you're responsible, Alex, but you're part of it, and not in a bad way. You're part of that, what makes Indiana great, and all you guys, and I'll probably talk to all you guys today, but there's a certain component to Indiana basketball that I've always, especially when I was playing here, that it's a layer of insulation that I like to call it, that protects the program from when they're struggling. And it doesn't mean you don't tell the truth or create fluff to insulate the program, but it's a responsibility, and it's a responsibility for those that love the program, in particular the former players, coaches, managers, but it's a responsibility of this current staff. And I think even as important, for you guys that make a living off of reporting on Indiana and Indiana University sports and Indiana basketball, it's as much, in my opinion, your job to tell the good stories and make sure that you know exactly what's going on instead of just writing a column. And you know exactly what's going on, because like Coach Izzo, my former boss, always said, is The one thing you can't get away with is BS in the Indiana fans and the Indiana media, because they know basketball. The problem is basketball has changed so much in the last 20 years. Kids, yes, they've changed, but what their head is filled with has changed. And if you're not up to date as a columnist or a reporter, then you know, it's your responsibility to come in and communicate with the staff and make sure you guys are all working together to get this thing. We're all working together to get this thing right.
Tom.
Thank you.
Hello, Dane. Nice to meet you finally. One of the, I know you and Mike are 20 something years apart age wise, but what's your relationship been with him through the years, and how much time have you spent with him?
Zero. I'm not even sure we've met. I've known him. I've known of him. Lots of respect for him, Tom, but this is just something that you're automatically connected. It's going to take some time for him to get to know me. And one of my struggles is, you know, you're supposed to recruit to your boss. And I'm used to recruiting to Tom Izzo. And this is a totally different philosophy, thought process. You know, Coach Woodson comes from the NBA. I got to figure out what types of players that work best with him. And we all do. You know, I still tend to think that character obviously matters with a player, but maybe it's someone like Coach Woodson that can turn around a kid's life from that aspect. Someone that isn't known for having the best character. Maybe Coach Woodson's someone that can take somebody who has questionable character, but's a great basketball player. You know, the great thing about it is we do have choices here in college. You know, we're not relying on a GM to just throw us some players. We have choices. But what I've got to do is figure out which players are the best players for Coach Woodson that fit his system.
Mike Schumann.
Yeah. Hi, Dane. Mike Schumann with the Daily Hoosier. I wanted to ask you, hey, how's it going? I wanted to ask you about Rob Phinisee. He's a guy that had some really bright moments against MSU over the last few years, including some impressive defense against Cassius Winston, but he also is a guy that struggled with confidence at times. And I recall you at one point saying you struggled earlier in your career with confidence. I'm just wondering kind of what your impressions of him as a player are, and what do you hope that you can help to bring out of him over his last year or two?
It's a great point. You know, one of the things when I think about the toughness, the competitive feature that Indiana basketball should always have as it relates to this team, it's Rob Phinisee. Like we've got to get Rob Phinisee back to being a NBA type defender. I mean, he's that good in my opinion. And like you said, thanks for bringing that up, Mike. But, you know, he's the leader up front. That's your first line of defense. And if his mind is elsewhere, your defense is going to struggle. You know, the first line of defense, that's something where pride gets in, you know, comes into play. And if you don't have someone up there that takes it personal when the other team scores, like I think a Rob Phinisee does, then that's a problem. And so that's one of my first objectives coming here is, you know, Stella figured out how to get her groove back. We got to get Rob Phinisee to figure out how to get his groove back. And I don't think there's a better defender in the league than Rob Phinisee. And you can make money and you can gain confidence with defense. I mean, I lasted 4 years with crappy offense and still played a lot of minutes. And it worked out for me in the end. I got a little bit of offensive confidence. I could actually dribble the ball. But I think, you know, my personal story, as you said, Mike, is a lot like Phinisee's, where, you know, defense is his niche. That's his niche. And he can make money doing it if he really puts his mind to it. And he will get confidence through good defense as well. We got to get him back because to me, he's the best defender in the Big Ten.
JoJo.
Hi, Coach. JoJo Gentry with CBS4 here. I'd like to know how you would describe the kind of coaching style you're looking to implement with this group, and how do you expect these players to respond to it?
Could you ask that question one more time? I thought you were at Lucas Oil Field.
I'm sorry. I'm actually in line to get vaccinated right now. It's a little loud.
For you.
So if you can't hear me, just allow me to
No, you're
restate
good.
it.
You're good.
All right. I just wanted to know, how would you describe the kind of coaching style you're looking to implement with this group, and how do you expect the players to respond to it?
Well, I think once again, you got to kind of adjust to your boss's temperament. And I think there'll be some good cop, bad cop at times. You know, as much as I've got to adjust to Coach Woodson. Coach Woodson's dealing with a whole new dynamic. You know, he's dealing with kids that are sometimes 17 and they're right from their parents' homes. You know, for the most part, at the NBA level, he's dealing with men. You know, at times he's dealing 19, 20-year-olds, but he's dealing with men that have been on their own for a while. And now he's dealing with kids that still might look in the stands at their parents when something's going wrong. And that's not always the case, but you know, there's adjustment that we've got to help Coach Woodson deal with too. And the great thing about it is he doesn't have an ego, and he should, but he doesn't. You know, when we're sitting here in a staff meeting, we've been in a few of them. It's really neat to be able to say something, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I can see where you're right on that." And it's I'm really looking forward to learning, you know, what Coach Woodson has to offer. You know, I've been in a couple meetings where he's just talked X's and O's, and it's fascinating to just see how advanced and hear how advanced it is at that level. And then flip side, we get more primitive here at college basketball. Like, Coach, you got to think back to when you raised your two daughters and they were 16, 17, 18. And, you know, what would you have said then as opposed to most of the people you deal with now at your level? And there's give and take. And, you know, we've got Coach Matta, we've got Coach Roberts, we've got Kenya, we've got some support staff that we've kept here. And, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of blending here. And I think it's going to be a perfect scenario for our players. Because when Coach Woodson speaks, it's like he's speaking to Carmelo Anthony or Allen Iverson. Whereas when I speak, it's more geared towards the Trace Jackson Davises or the Gary Harrises or the guys that coached at Michigan State. And, you know, we can learn a lot. Coach Woodson and I and the staff, we can learn a lot from each other. And I think it's going to work out great for our players.
Dustin.
Hey, Coach. Dustin DePurak from the Daily Hoosier. You mentioned earlier, you're just talking about just coaching at Indiana and what it's like, you know, being around Indiana. What do you think is just the value of having, you know, a head coach and also a top assistant coach like yourself, just having been an Indiana grad and having an idea what this is like going into it to, I guess, both to kind of bring the IU, you know, alum family back in, but also just to have people in those positions that have played in this spot?
Well, you know, I was talking to one of our support staff members the other day, and I won't name a name, and he didn't do anything wrong, but he kind of, I was asking him for a favor to do something, and he kind of said, well, that's this person's job. And I said, well, you're in the office, and the other person's not in the office, works at another part of the athletic department. And it was something that needed to be done, and needed to be done what I felt with passion, and the thought that, you know, it's do or die every time you do something. And I think, you know, relating to your question, Dustin, that, you know, Coach Woodson, there's just a little bit more passion when you're trying to sell Indiana, or when you're selling Indiana to a family or a student, potential student athlete. There's a little bit more passion behind a loss at Purdue or a win at Purdue. That doesn't discredit any of the coaches that have been here, because they've done a great job in their own right. But to me, Indiana is a really, really unique place. And it's a place where it requires somebody that understands the dynamic, the beast that it is. And it also is somebody that understands the massive alumni base, the passion they have. I've always said I want to come back and coach in Indiana. Why? Because of the passion for basketball. Why? Because people know basketball, and it's unlike any other place in the world. And with that in mind, I've always felt that in Indiana basketball, the Indiana basketball job, by and large, should be coached by somebody who played or coached here or spent a lot of time here. And I think Coach Woodson's perfect at this time. And I think that Coach Woodson had in mind that he was going to bring in others that had the same passion that he did. And I do believe that this is the right move to, once again, to bring everyone together, because as I said, the team was good enough last year to be in the NCAA tournament minimum. And as much as we can all blame the staff and the players, everybody plays a role. And what I saw was just people picking and picking and picking at our program. And everybody jumped on board, and it just created a giant snowball and an avalanche that couldn't be stopped. And so I felt for Archie and his staff, and I felt for the former players. And to be fair, you know, we were booed off the floor 2 or 3 times when I played here. You know, it wasn't like when they got booed in where was it? Lucas Oil was a Big Ten tournament that Indiana hasn't been booed before. Everybody's making a big deal about that. Hell, we've been booed up 20 walking off the floor with Coach Knight. And seems like some people forget. Well, I think it's a good time for me to be here to remind people that Indiana fans don't typically boo. And I was disappointed that they did boo, but you know, it made me mad. And I'm not afraid to lecture a few people, because this is my program. This is your program. This is Coach Woodson's program. And if anybody has a right to criticize or stick up for it, it's us.
Kevin.
Yeah, Coach Kevin Brockway from CNHI Indiana. First of all, congratulations on the job.
Thanks, Kevin.
Secondly, you know, you alluded to Coach Izzo. Obviously, you spent a lot of years with him, 10 years with him. First of all, what was his reaction when he took the job? And secondly, what do you think you will take from your 10 years from him that you could kind of bring to the program in terms of maybe what you've learned along the way?
Well, Coach Izzo's always known that my dream is to coach at Indiana, is to be the coach at Indiana. And I've never really shied away from that. And so when this job came open, my first objective was to try to get the head job. And I made no bones about it with him. But my second objective is, if they get a former player or they get a coach that I like and respect, I think change is good. Change is good for me. Change is ultimately good for most. And 10 years is a long time to be somewhere. And Coach Izzo agreed with that. And when Coach Woodson got the job, it really was an easy decision. And I just thought if he called and offered me the right position and the right description and gave me the right responsibilities that I felt I'd earned and had a right to ask for, I was going to do it. And so it was pretty easy. And what was the second part of your question, Kevin?
Just what you took from him in terms of the 10 years, what you learned, what you gained, how you grew under him, and how that can translate into this position at this time.
Well, most importantly is how to help a young man improve. You know, with Coach Izzo, he asked for somebody the minute they come in, a recruit, player, parents, what the goals are. You know, it's one thing to say during the recruiting process what their goals are, but when they get there, what are your goals? Where do you think you are? And once you put those goals down, he deems it his responsibility to hold them to that every day. And that's really what it is. It's an everyday process. And guess who's involved? The parents, the people that are in the kid's ear. And you can bet that, you know, it may sound a little high school Harry, but I'm going to be in the ears of everybody that's involved with the player, everybody that impacts the student athlete. I'm going to be involved. We're going to be involved, because that's the only way, because every little piece, and unfortunately you've got the social media, but every time that somebody casts doubt in that kid's ear, that's one more step away from their goals. And so is it invasive? Yes. Is it being in your kid's business? Yes. But for any of you that have coached out there, if you coach somebody long enough, you start to care about them. And if you start to care about them long enough, they start to kind of mimic the way you treat your own kids, for those that have kids. And, you know, there's a line in coaching where you say, gosh, you know, sometimes I want it worse than you. And that's true. But you find that you're saying the same stuff to your kids and their own goals. And there's some mimicry there where you just get so desperate to help your players understand. But, you know, there's a new beast out there, and that's where everybody's trying to be the hero and make money or make fame off of these kids, especially at this level. And if you're not, if someone doesn't keep their circle tight, or you're not plugged into what's going on and what's being said to your student athlete, it's a problem. And so you've got to be in tune with everybody that's in this kid's ear.
Zach.
Mike, or Kevin, are you at the beach?
Yeah, I came down to Florida a few days ago and I've lost my base tan. So it's like
What part there, Studley? I like the tan.
West Palm Beach. Yeah.
Awesome.
Visiting
Good
some
looking,
family. Yeah.
maybe a little burnt, maybe a little sunscreen for you today.
I put on 30 and it didn't work.
50's the play. Maybe a hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you golf?
Next time. Yeah.
Do you golf?
No, fishing. So I'm out in the water.
What'd you catch?
Yeah, some kingfish, king mackerel, stuff like that. So, you know,
Yep.
good stuff.
Maybe a hat, some sunscreen.
Yeah.
Coming from a
Yeah,
guy that said melanoma. Let's do it.
My skin doesn't, it's 2 years in Indiana. My skin doesn't react the way it used to. I lived in Florida 18 years before that. So,
I'm thinking right here.
yep.
Jim Coyle.
How am I going to follow that, man? Dane, how are you doing, man?
Is that real hair?
You talking about me or you talking about Kevin?
Yeah. Is that the fake hair hat?
No, man. Oh yeah, fake hair hat. You know, that's the real stuff, brother. That's
Okay.
the real stuff. Nice to see you again. How are you?
Good to see you, Jim.
I've got my sunscreen all lined up, though. I'm ready, good to go. I'm not
look
on
like
vacation.
you-
I'm here working hard,
Look like
covering
have
you
one
guys.
on. You got 50 on now. You look like me.
Exactly. It's working too hard. Hey, talking about all the things that you have as far as your passion and all of that, there's a lot of fractures in the program, even in the fans, because there's so many different eras from Coach Knight's era, whether it's Sampson, Crean, Miller, you got all these groups now, but there's also groups in the fans. There's a lot of fractures.
Yeah.
Winning does a lot for that, but there's a lot that needs to be brought back together. You're obviously, I think, the guy to do that, but why is that? And what is part of what you're planning on doing to bring all of that together?
Well, like you said, winning's important, but I think when Coach Knight left, it brought about a lot of questions, obviously some uncertainty and instability. And I think since then, it's really left people in wonderment, especially the new generation, the younger generations of Indiana. Where is this Indiana basketball that's so great? And they've never really been able to attach themselves to what makes this place so special. And, you know, it just seems like we have a bunch of Yankees and Red Sox fans that are fine when we're good and they're brutal when we lose. But that's not the way it used to be. Yeah, we were booed off the court, but those same people showed up the next time cheering their heads off. You know, the balconies were filled to play a team that was out of a conference that they'd never heard of. And it's okay to get upset, but you know, what's going on now is pretty superficial and, you know, what do they call it? Fair weather fanish. And I understand it. I really do. We have to get some stability here. And I think Coach Woodson and the staff here is going to dig in and get out to these small towns and visit with these former players, because we all have a responsibility. And you guys do too. This massive media following, you guys do too. So when you're bitching about our team, you know, that's fine. But if you're wrong, if I think you're wrong, you know, I'm going to call you. And if you think our offense is wrong, I'd like for maybe you guys to call us or call me. I don't know where Woody stands on that, but you know, if you guys are going to be putting the message out there, let's just make sure we're getting it right. And that involves working together. We'll tell you as much as we can, but you know, just make sure you get the stories on what's going on. And because you know, unfortunately or fortunately, you guys know what you're talking about. And I know you got to sell papers and sell clicks, but you also got to get it right and be fair. And we'll try to be fair with you guys. But this place, I think we'll mend a lot of fences here, Jim, just by virtue of Coach Woodson being here. You know, connecting the old with the young, and by the older guys coming back, the older fans coming back, and helping this younger, newer generation. I think it's going to do a lot of education and teaching to these newer, younger generations and the students that we have now. You know, we gotta talk the word too. We gotta talk it. We gotta talk about how special this place still is and should be.
Mike Pegram.
Pigs.
Hey, Dane. Mike
I used to
Pegram.
go to the Pigs tailgate, everybody, before Midnight Madness. That is a sign of being all in.
Yeah, good times. Got to go set it back to midnight then to make it happen.
Past my bedtime.
Hey, what were your first thoughts when you heard Thad Matta was going to be involved with the program? And also, how well did you know Kenya Hunter before all this, and how might you two complement each other?
Well, Thad Matta, gosh, I remember back when he was at Xavier, and I wouldn't have thought he knew who I was. And we just happened to maybe be eating next to each other in a hotel, eating breakfast. And he stopped and introduced himself. And I think, a GA at Indiana. And he said, if there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. And it just goes such a long way for little things like that. And then he coached at Ohio State while we were at Indiana. And I've just always thought of him as most importantly, just a high character person. And so when I found out he was here or coming here, and then when I had the opportunity, it was golden for me, because you're working for a coach. I can't remember how many years he was at Ohio State, but he's been a head coach for a long time. And he's just a great person. He's such a positive person to be around. And his wife, Barbara, I get to know, you know what? It's just somebody that you can really learn from, that's been in the business, that's taken the hits, you know, that's had to walk away from a great job. It's just been through it and won at a high level. So this is a perfect scenario for us, you know, myself and obviously our head coach, Coach Woodson. I was fired up to find out he's here, and I just hope he'll stay for a long time. Kenya Hunter, I got to know Kenya when he was at Nebraska. He worked with Michael Lewis, and if he's good with Michael, he's good with me. And I think it just rings true. He's a great worker. He's what I would say a complete coach, where he's not just an X's and O's guy or recruiter. He does the whole thing. And Kenya's going to be, to me, a great head coach someday, just because he kind of knows everything that can make a program go. He's got a great understanding for it. So complementing each other, I don't think we'll miss a beat as far as the staff, especially as it goes with myself and Kenya.
Thanks.
Alec.
Hey, Coach. Alec Lastly, thehoosier.com. Can you just talk a little bit about facing Indiana twice last year, knowing a little bit about the roster already? What do you like about it, and where are some rooms that you really need to kind of progress and get better?
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk to Phinisee yet about it, but we beat him last year because Rob Phinisee, he didn't hawk the ball like he did. Now, I say that with a smirk, but I like their team. As I said, they were to me an NCAA tournament team. And I think we've got to get back to we were a -3 in rebounding. You got big Trace and Race up front. That shouldn't happen. And you got toughness with Rob Phinisee, as the head of the snake. That's a critical part. And so we got those three coming back. So you got defense and rebounding. You got somebody setting the tone right up front. And then you've got those two guys at the back line. We've got to get more from Trace on the defensive end. I think he averaged just about 10 in conference rebounding. We got to get that to 13. We got to get him and Race fighting for balls above the rim every possession. That's fine. Maybe they both need face masks because at least we know they're going after it. The one thing that I'm definitely going to bring is the defending and rebounding intensity from Michigan State. And I think Coach Woodson's already said that that's got to be a staple anyway. Well, we're going to take it to another level here, Lord willing, and get these guys to understand that, those last 4 or 5, 6 games that they lost, they were in it under 2 minutes. And those are the things, aside from free throw shooting, that'll get you beat, is if you don't defend and come up with those loose balls and control those possessions when it matters.
Ken,
Coach Ken Bycock from Peas.com. I can assure you this is my real hair.
Hey, that's sharp. That is sharp. That's fresh.
What's that?
Is it fresh this morning?
Over the weekend, anyway.
Well, maybe we need better HD on this internet.
Well, everybody needs that. So you went through a firing and a transition, obviously, as a player, to the point that even in the moment you talked about possibly transferring and all of that, you stayed. How did that experience as a player kind of help you coming into this situation when players are going through some of the same kind of emotions?
Well, at the time I came to play for Coach Knight, and I'd do it all over again. My issue was that I was told that they weren't bringing, I'd said all along, look, we're going to respect what President Brand just did. Well, at least I was. And if they keep Coach Davis and Treelor, I just assumed that was the natural progression of it. It was too late, into the fall and going into the preseason that I felt they could bring in another coach other than a recycled coach. And so once I found out that, they were going to keep Coach Davis and Treelor, that was an easy decision to me. And the reason is my teammates, and it was Indiana basketball. And so it's just, I didn't want to play for somebody new system that didn't represent potentially what I came to play here for. And honestly, I was going to go play at Michigan State, and, I was going to pay my own way and for a year at least and go to Michigan State, because Coach Izzo was to me the kind of the Indiana of Michigan at the time. And he was making headway as far as competing for championships. But guys like Kirk Haston and, Coverdale and Jared Odell and, you can go down the list, Jared Jeffries, Jeff Newton, those guys, Moye, they were like my brothers. And that's what ultimately it comes down to is, it's family but it has to be lived every day. And that's why I decided to come back, and it was an easy decision for me.
Did that experience kind of help you with the players now, kind of help them work through some of their emotions?
Well, I didn't do a very good job with Brunk, but I didn't get a lot of time. But here's the thing: like kids, there's so many more distractions. There's so many more people involved in these kids' lives with opinions that it's really easy. And I'm not suggesting this happened to Joey, but it's so easy to get sidetracked and get distracted with social media and people just constantly pecking at you if you don't have your circle tight. But that's on the staff too. We got to know we got to look for signs. We got to be investigators. We got to be almost FBI to know what's being thrown in these kids' faces and going in their ears. There's just so many people out there with an agenda that have access to our players. You know, they had the same access at Michigan State. And if you're not plugged in, especially around these, especially during this time where the portal's open and everybody's painting a picture of the grass being greener somewhere else. You get somebody that didn't have a great year and doesn't have, you know, the self-confidence of betting on themselves. You know, they're ripe for the picking. And, you know, every program's dealing with it. And the ones that are plugged into their players and make sure they're answering questions and, you know, eliminating doubts is as much as anything. And, you know, great teammates play a role. And that's the thing, you know, I was talking to Anthony Leal about this morning is, you know, if you don't know a teammate's struggling, then you're really got your head in the sand as much as a coach does. You know, here we got to preach teammate support too, you know, and if you feel you can't get through to a teammate as a player, you got to talk to the staff and let them know that a teammate's struggling. That's as important as anything. And so there's going to be a lecture to the staff today as much as there'll be a lecture to the players.
I appreciate it. Welcome back to Bloomington.
Thanks, Ken.
Aaron.
Hi, Coach. Aaron Matus from WDRB in Louisville. I was actually watching some old video and old press conferences from you back in the day. And I think it was in Atlanta. You said this is where Indiana belongs in Final Fours and Final Eights. So I'm just wondering, you know, almost 20 years later, does that comment still hold water, so to speak, or do you need to earn that?
Eventually, yeah. Well, that was at the time. That was, you know, that was 20 years. You got me. But you know what, Aaron, that's a good point. It's a good question, not in a condescending way. You know, we are fragmented. And like I said, we as the state of Indiana basketball has got to be, there's still some missing pieces. And I think we all, Coach Woodson, myself, we all can talk the talk. But we've got to dig in with people and figure it out. And there's no one person that's causing a problem. It's really just takes man hours. It takes work. It takes time on the clock that we've got to invest. And it's got to be a complete and full investment, but it takes the right understanding. You know, we've got to get out into these communities, you know, when COVID's done and reinvest in the things that, you know, really helped Coach Knight, you know, and the coaches before, the players before. This still is a community deal. I mean, I can remember traveling the state, sitting in gyms, even as a player here, high school gyms, barnstorming tours, camps, going up to play golf, not very good, but different golf outings. Those are the things that protect you do, not just to engage with people and engage with alumni and more or less just to tell them thank you by being there. That's your way of saying thank you. But when you recognize that we're not just Instagram, Instagram sensations or Twitter sensations, and you recognize that Trace Jackson Davis is one of the nicest kids you'll ever meet. Race Thompson, incredible kid. Phinisee, incredible kid. Leo Galloway. These are kids that grew up just like you guys, myself, Coach Woodson, that they're still the same dudes, you know, and instead of doing our social media things, you know, and sending out pictures after wins or losses, let's go out and sign autographs. Let's go into these communities. Let's go to Newcastle or Fort Wayne or Elkhart or Kokomo or Clarksville and be with the fans, the people that love this program, and tell them thank you. And I don't want anybody crying on this. Okay. It looks like Dylan looks like he's about to cry here, get sentimental. But I think the reality is none of that really happens anymore. And I don't think it's anybody's fault, but it's just something that I know has to happen in order for this to work, you know, as you mentioned, the way it's supposed to work. And it doesn't mean that we're winning the national championship next year. It doesn't mean that we're going to the Elite Eight, because I'm not sure how it's going to unfold next year. I can tell you how it's going to unfold, but nobody really knows. This portal and these players coming and going everywhere around the country, who knows? I couldn't tell you how good the Big Ten or bad the Big Ten is going to be next year. But what I can tell you is when we can get out and get into these communities, you can bet that me and my daughters, my two little girls, they're going to see what Indiana basketball is all about. You know, and if we go down to Louisville, we still expect people to be in their candy stripes and come up to say hello. You know, I think that, you know, there'll still be some old grannies or grandpas may come up and ask if I'm still playing, which, you know, it's you still playing? How many more years you got? But it's that's how you build. That's how you rebuild, and that's how you reestablish this culture that was so strong when I was here.
Okay, we got time for 2 more questions. John.
Hi, this is John Blau with the Herald Times in Bloomington. I saw, or I heard an interview you had with Dan Dockage. You were talking about your 2 kids are actually Michigan State fans. Have you done anything yet to kind of break them of that, or kind of where are you in that process?
Well, we can always buy their love and buy their fandom with candy, junk food. We're going to do it more organically, not with organic candy and junk food, but just let them figure it out. They're going to come down here and they'll realize real quick that whether you're a Boiler or a Spartan, they're respectful for the most part, but they're going to see that this is a pretty special place. You know, my 8-year-old booed me yesterday, but she did have a candy stripe, you know, hair tie on, and she didn't even know my wife slipped one on her head. And she said she liked it. So she liked the cream and crimson. She didn't even realize what she was doing. You know, my wife's Indiana grad too, and she's kind of subtly been brainwashing them their whole lives. So I think once they get down here, they'll be switched over and won't even know what hit them.
Okay, last question, Olivia.
Hi, Coach. Olivia Ray here with Wish TV and also a proud Indiana grad. So as you were getting sentimental there a couple of questions ago, I want you to get back in that mindset and tell me how you felt walking back in Assembly Hall for the first time, now being back a part of the Indiana program. Did it feel the same? Did it feel completely different? Have you hit up any of your favorite spots being back in town?
Yeah. Well, Assembly Hall, you know, the COVID version happened last year and, you know, the years prior. But now that I'm back, I guess on the right side, it's funny you ask. I can't wait to sneak in. I still haven't had time just to go sit in the bleachers or sit in the chairs. Sit in the chairs where maybe my grandparents sat or my parents sat and watched me, where the families would sit. I'd always look up there and see who was there watching. So many stories come back to me, funny stories during practice with Coach Knight or Coach Davis, or funny stories, you know, during games, stuff that would happen. It just not much has changed, Olivia, and that's what's really unique about it. It's just they really haven't done much. You know, you look up at, you know, the suite, the 76, I can't remember the name of it, but the Spirit of 76 suite. And that is really neat. And that's something that's a great addition. But the bleachers are still the same. You know, when you back the bleachers up, you still can't get to the top of the very top of the 3-point line and get a good shot there. And I think that, you know, talking X's and O's with Coach Woodson, there's just so many things that reflect the things we both learned from Coach Knight. It's really neat to go back to what would be deemed primitive, but in the end, all the things that Coach Knight would teach transcend time. What worked then worked now. And it's really just hard work, dedication, being all in, being coachable, and trusting the process, which nobody does anymore. Eating spots, I was really disappointed, and I think we really got to get to work on this. We need the media. Opie Taylor's was one of my favorite spots. Opie Taylor was one of my favorite spots, and I was really brokenhearted when I found out it had closed and, you know, susceptible or succumbed to COVID. But Malibu's always been good to me. I like hole in the walls, so I'm looking for new hole in the wall spots. And then, you know, I would eat at Convenient Mart a lot. I don't know how the sandwiches are, but I'd eat at Convenient Mart a lot. And I'm just looking forward to mooching off the program a little bit. Leftover scraps. I was famous for doing that. I'm pretty cheap. I've got the alligator arms. I've been known to forget my wallet a time or two when it's time to go out to dinner. And but there's no shame in it. I come by and honestly, I'm cheap and have alligator arms, and, you know, pray to God every time that someone foots the bill.